LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't predict the future, but it can help you feel confident about future hires. Because Hiring Pro combines real-time insights and candidate data from the LinkedIn network with the criteria you've set for your role to deliver you a list of top-fit candidates. Businesses who use LinkedIn are 24% less likely to reopen a role in the next 12 months. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn. Welcome to How We're the podcast, and it's match day at last. Because there's lots of reasons why we look forward to a match day, but this week, a lot of us, and probably nobody more so than the players, would like to get a result to put last week's game well and truly behind us. And later today, the lads have an opportunity to put it right against Wolverhampton Wanderers at Molineux. And with Wolves having won 3 out of 34 games so far this season, it means they're not only rooted to the bottom of the table, but they are already relegated along with Burnley to the Championship. So, to help talk about everything around today's fixture, we firstly have Gavin Henderson with us. Hello, Gav.
Hello, mate. Yes, I am. I'm actually quite looking forward to this because, perversely, I've watched Wolves a little bit recently, and they're not as bad as the league position is, and I'm just interested to see how we fare against them. But I mean, it's a daunting task facing the team bottom of the league who are already relegated, I think. I mean, we remember that game that got flipped around, and you talked about it on the opposition preview when they won the championship and we were bottom of the table. Who won? Sunderland 3-0. So yeah, it could be an interesting game, this one. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, still a weird day that day, but yeah, and actually reading your comments on the BBC, Gav, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts about us reacting. But next up we have Ant Watson. Hello, mate.
Hello. Yes, looking forward to it. I just want to play football again after last week, get that out of our heads, and then just focus on today, which Gav said could be a little bit of a banana skin, but I am confident. So good to get me.
And we're talking to you ahead of your birthday weekend, mate. So many happy returns. 21 again. Must
I wish. Yeah, I wish. I celebrating a big one. So party tonight, and then see what happens over the weekend. Might just stay out all weekend, to be honest. Depends on the result.
Exactly. It always dictates our weekend, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, have a cracking weekend, mate. But and last but not least, we have Bomber with us, who was adamant he was on time today.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, I was an hour early, Chris, so my mismanagement of time has for once played into my hands. So yeah, and I think unlike everybody else here, I did not watch the Forest game. I've only seen the goals. I didn't even watch the extended highlights. So I don't think I'm as damaged as the rest of you coming into this preview for the Wolves one. But what I will say, just to temper those expectations, you mentioned about Wolves' 3 wins this season, and they got 17 points and they're sat at the bottom of the league. Those 3 wins have all come at home, and 12 of those 17 points have come at home. So, just to get my negativity in there early doors, because the rest of it, I think I'm going to be quite positive about.
Bloody hell. We've already done the introductions, and Gav's like, God, teams at the bottom are dangerous. Bombers saying like they've got all their points at home. So
no, I'm just getting out of the way early, mate. I'm just getting out of the way early. Everything else is going to be fine now.
Well, I suppose you've had an hour to mull over it since you've been waiting for us to, to turn this right now. But anyway, let's get into it, because look, the lads are, of course, travelling to Molineux to take on Wolves, as we've said. So let's start with the opposition. And it was an interesting chat I had with Dave from Talking Wolves, which Gav's already mentioned. And Gav, we talked about this being Wolves' 8th consecutive season in the Premier League. And when you look at it, it's only 4 or 5 years since they were finishing 7th, twice off the bounce, actually. And then they reached the quarterfinal, the Europa League. So looking at Wolves, they're actually a really good example of how a club can just stagnate in the Premier League for a few years before it goes completely wrong.
And obviously a lot of that frustration because of the situation they're in is being levelled at the owners who took them on this journey. And maybe it's just a case that this ownership group's took them as far as they can. I don't know. That's probably for Wolves fans to answer. I don't know if there's any listening, but feel free to let us know. But yeah, I kind of get the impression that's what it is. Really, I get the impression that it's just the end of the cycle for Wolves. They entered in a blaze of glory with. I mean, do you remember that ridiculous team they had in the Championship with like Diogo Jota and was it Helder Costa, the winger, and they had a bunch of other like really talented Portuguese players who got them out of the Championship, mixed with a blend of some good young English players and experienced players, and then they've been a really, really good addition to the Premier League. Actually, Wolves. I'm a little bit sad to see them go because they did try something a little bit different, and there was a period probably I don't know 3-4 years ago where Wolves were probably one of my favorite teams to watch. Were really entertaining team, but I think, and this is something we've been talking about a little bit about with ourselves. You've got to guard against complacency. You can't get complacent in the Premier League. You can't stand still because teams will just take over you. And I mean, we've blasted past them in a season. You know what I mean? That's how quickly these things can happen. But they're probably a good example of a club who had ambition, and that you've just said it yourself there. They got into Europe. They've had some good finishes in the Premier League. Their fans have seen some world-class footballers come through at their club. So for a team like Wolves, that's a big achievement still, because they're not traditionally a team who sits at the top table. They're probably a team whose natural position is low-end Premier League, top to middle Championship, aren't they? Really, like naturally, that's probably their place in the pecking order. So survive as long as they have is commendable, actually. And yeah, they'll be sad. They'll be sad that the way things have gone. But we've been in their position, haven't we, before, where you just want the season over with so you can start again. Hopefully, for their sake, it doesn't go as badly as it did for us. But you'll remember that they actually suffered back-to-back relegations, I think, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
So they've been there before as well. And yeah, fingers crossed for Wolves. They do rebuild. So I quite like them, actually. I went there with Jody Craddock's testimonial. It'll been about 10, 12 years ago now. I can't remember. And we got treated brilliantly there by their fans, and it was just a great day. And I've had a bit of a soft spot for them ever since. So yeah, fingers crossed it goes well for them over the summer, but certainly on Saturday, I'm hoping they continue to be terrible, really.
Yeah, well, it was back in 2012-13, then 2013-14 when Wolves had back-to-back relegations and went down to League One. I think there's a few Wolves fans worried that might happen again, but I mean, they followed a similar pattern, I think, to what we had all those years ago when we were back in the Premier League the last time, when we were sacking managers when they started a season badly. Then another manager comes in to save Wolves, from the drop because they've had a couple of near misses. Then that manager starts the next season crap, and then they get sacked, and then the whole cycle starts again because I think they've had 5 managers in less than 5 years. And as we learned all those years ago, that's not a good cycle to get into. It's tough to get out of. So actually, it's not really that much of a surprise that they've gone down after a couple of near misses like that, is it, Ant?
No, you're right. They've definitely been flirting with it over the last few years. I think it's obviously since Nuno left, hasn't it? Because he had them playing some really nice football and stuff. And that they did have a good team. With Raul Jimenez as the focal point, they were superb. But I think there's been an issue with like the spending the money as well, don't they? They haven't really spent great. I think when Gary O'Neill had left, he'd said, like, obviously he'd wanted to sign this, that, and the other, and they wouldn't give him the money and all that. So it happens, as he said, it probably just reminds us of us, really, when we had Ellis Short and he decided he didn't want to run a football club anymore and we got relegated. And I do hope that they come back up quite quickly because I quite like them as well. I always think the strips are really nice, the gold strips that they wear. I always think it's a nice strip and stuff like that. And yeah, they seem like really good fans. Seem like like I say, a good honest club and stuff like that. So fingers crossed they're not too long on the Championship. And I really hope they don't do the double drop. But we've seen this season with Leicester. I mean, I don't think anyone have had Leicester down for a double drop. It can happen. And if you don't run the club properly, then that's the case. And the thing is with Wolves, though, you look at the squads, there's not many players you'd probably take from that squad. I think Mane is a good player. And they've got João Gomez, I think they've got them, who takes the free kicks. Yeah. He's a quality player. Apart from that, you're kind of looking at the thing, and probably Saul get a move. maybe a couple more, but not many. So they might be able to be okay with that squad they've got. But obviously, they'll be on Premier League wages and they might have to shed that bill. But hope they're not down there for too long, Chris.
Yeah, it is weird that double drop seems to be happening more and more often. The likes of us and Wolves all those years ago. Yeah, Luton, Leicester. Yeah, it does seem to be happening more often. But Bomber, they are bottom of the league with 17 points, as we've already mentioned. Those 3 wins all season that we talked about. You said they all came at home, so they're still waiting for that away win. As Gav kind of touched on, Bomber, we've had a couple of seasons along those lines in living memory. The 15-point season, 19-point season. They've got 4 games left. And because we've had that experience, we know how crap that is to end a season like that and have a few games left just to play out. But actually, looking at the Spurs game, Bomber, it seemed like the players were still putting a shift in.
Yeah, it looks like they haven't given up. I think that whilst they can still finish 19th, can't they? Which I know is an absolute small mercy. But they'll be looking at that last game of the season against Burnley and hoping to be in touch and probably hoping that they can get a result in that game and then, not have the history books tell the story that they finished bottom of the league. So they're still definitely fighting for something. They're playing for the manager, they're playing for the fans. And I think at this stage of the season, that's all really you can ask. You see it time and time again, don't you, that teams are doomed to relegation and they're down tools, particularly in our cases, the times where we've had our relegation confirmed and then all those mercenaries that we overpaid for and overpaid to, just decide that actually I'm not going to bother anymore because, come June the 1st or July the 1st, I'll be away. They're certainly not doing that. And, their results at home have been a lot better since that Arsenal draw. They drew 2-2 against Arsenal at home. They've beaten Villa at home. They've beaten Liverpool at home. I know the Spurs result last time out would have been, that was at Molineux, wasn't it? And obviously they lost 1-0. But, they seem to be putting something together, albeit far, far too late. But putting something together at home in this last run-in at the end of the season. I think we just need to be careful that we don't fall foul of it because, like I said, even though they're relegated, it would be easy for us to go to Molineux and think, oh, do you know what, this lot are down. We'll get at them early, we'll score an early goal, and that'll be it, and we'll put 3 or 4 past them. Our home record suggests that, our away record suggests that we won't do that. But also, we just need to be mindful that we're not complacent because they'll be desperate to not finish bottom of the league whilst they possibly can, considering especially how many points behind everybody else they were come like Christmas time. Everyone thought it was going to be another record low points total, but they've certainly turned it round in this first part of 2026. So yeah, just need to be careful of that, really.
Yeah. I mean, Gav, just last one on Wolves. I'll throw to you because I think they've lost 1 in the last 4 at home, I think, having a quick look there. And you said that they might be dangerous. And it was interesting, again, talking to Dave, because I thought Rob Edwards might just take the shackles off this Wolves side and just say, just go and play, just enjoy yourselves. You've got nothing to lose. But it seemed like against Spurs, they played really defensive and didn't really have much of a shot on target. Tottenham, he said Tottenham were poor and they scored, late on and nicked one. But he said neither side really were coming out and playing kind of free-flowing football. So you were saying earlier that it might be dangerous. Do you think that there comes a time when a team in this position just says sod it and just goes for it and just enjoys it? Almost like that Sunderland team when we beat Wolves 3-0 that time.
I think they've already had that moment, really. They changed managers when they were already doomed. I think everybody had kind of accepted long before the relegation was confirmed that Wolves were going down. And there was probably that feeling internally as well. And that's when they went on that little run where they picked up some really good results. I mean, they took a point off Forest. They beat Grimsby in the Cup. They took a point off Arsenal, which was a great result. They beat Villa, which was a massive result.
Yeah, ridiculous.
They then followed that up with a win over Liverpool. Drew with Brentford. The sort of the form over 10 games isn't of a team who are bottom of the table. So I think you've probably got to give credit to Rob Edwards. He's you can see he's having an effect, and it's not been enough of an effect to keep them in the league, but it's an effect, and it gives them a bit of a platform for next season. And I think that's where they're at. They'll probably be looking at these last 4 games, planning ahead, really. Like, what can we do to get ready for next season mentally? And yeah, I mean, they've got 2 home games left, so they'll be wanting to give their fans something to cheer about after what's been a really miserable season. I think that's what makes them dangerous. They've got nothing to lose, really. They're just playing the games out, but they're almost not playing like a team who's got nothing left to play for. They're playing like a team who's, all right, we've accepted our fate. We're going again in the summer.
Because like I said, Gav, they're not going to want to finish bottom. Whilst they can mathematically finish bottom but one, it's a small mercy, but it is a mercy.
That's a target, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah. And I mean, you kind of look at the team that they've got, and I think this was briefly touched upon before, but there probably isn't a load of those players who are going to be coveted by top clubs. So a lot of them players will still be there next season. I know they've got 2 central midfielders who are Brazilian caps, which blows my mind. Like, you bottom the league, barely registered any points, and your 2 centre mids are Brazil internationals. But yeah, they've got some good young talent, and I think when even going back as far as January, there was signing players like Adam Armstrong, who is a championship striker, isn't he? He's not a Premier League player. I know he's been playing for them in the Premier League, but you're signing him basically for next season, aren't you? Because he's a sort of 10 to 20 goal a season striker if you can keep him fit. So that, they're almost planning ahead, really. And I think anybody who is on the way out is probably not really featured very much for them. Or at least players who are still playing with commitment, who want to get either moves in the summer or want to be picked by their countries to play at the World Cup, will probably still be trying their best for Wolves, and that's all you can ask for, really. So yeah, I just think they're a danger, me. I think they're a danger. Not that we've got a great amount to play for. I mean, we probably need to win 3 games to have any realistic chance of having a finish in the top 8. And that's our target. We've got to be looking at Wolves now, going, we've got to win this game, because then we have 2 6-pointers left. 3. Yeah, 2 6-pointers, but a big game against Man United left to see the season out, and that's got to be our target. But it all kind of I'm looking at this game and thinking, if we don't win, our season's probably over. So there's a little bit of jeopardy involved for this one, I think.
Yeah. Well, talking about picking people up, I think it's probably a good time to move on to Sunderland. But before we do, we're going to take a quick break. So we'll be back very soon.
This episode is brought to you by Ferrero. Soccer's biggest stage is approaching, and Ferrero is making it easy to go all in. Pick any 2 Ferrero brands, from Kinder Bueno to Ferrero Rocher, and you could win the $1 million grand prize, plus an exciting range of daily and weekly prizes. Don't miss your shot. Official rules apply. Learn more at goallinandwin.com.
And welcome back to How We're the podcast, and we've talked a little bit about Wolves and the situation they're in, but we need to move on to the lads. And the defeat to Forest, Ant, was actually only the second time this season we've had successive defeats. We had a run of 3 in February against Arsenal, Liverpool, Fulham, but other than that, and of course the Forest game, that was the second in a row. We've backed it up by avoiding defeat most of the time. And the first question in the press conference was actually about the response and the reaction of the squad of getting beat 5-0 at home. And Bris said, of course, a defeat like that hurts. It's a reminder and a warning how tough this league is, even though he said he thought we started the game well. And he said it shows what happens when your standards drop. And they were talking about the mentality of the squad. But Ant, do you think for the squad, it was almost a hard one to take? Because sometimes you just get battered in games sometimes, and you get beat 5-0, and sometimes you can hold your hands up. But this one seemed, the players seemed shell-shocked because the game just got away from us so quickly. And, there was a stat after 60 minutes where Forest had 5 shots on target, scored 4 goals. And there was just a lot of weirdness to the game, wasn't there?
I think that the most kind of worrying thing for me about it was how quickly we folded, because I know they scored I think they scored 3 in 7, didn't they? It was 3 in 7 minutes or something along those lines. How quickly, and this is probably our strongest 11, you would say, arguably. Maybe you take Rick out for a winger, but put Rick's been doing really, really well. But it's certainly our probably our strongest back line, you know, but it was, I guess maybe Ronaldo win, but like I say, but Ronaldo had a poor game the week before, but for me, that was the kind of thing. I couldn't get angry about it because I was just in that much shock. I literally couldn't believe what was going on. Never mind the players. So, but like I said, the worrying thing was, you know, just the fact that it was, like I say, such a strong team. You could probably understand it had it been in over Christmas when we had all those injuries and all those at the Cup of Nations. But the fact that happened. But I think though what was said was, and they said that quite quickly, and a lot of players have said it since as well, that we can't let our standards drop. You do that, and that's a stark reminder of how good this league is. Because you've got a side who were down there, and you know, you look what Forest have done since beating us. They've beat Aston Villa at home in a big game. You know, they're a good side. They showed that on Friday night. They were excellent, to be fair. As much as we were bad, they were also very good as well. But what we've got to do is, you know, you've just got to get out your minds very, very quickly. You know, the players have got to do that. Obviously, register and everything like that. They've got to get us sorted for Saturday, because if they just pretend they're going to show up and win today, they just have that attitude, then they'll get beat, and that's probably what happened last week. But so, like I say, I think hopefully it's just a one-off. Hopefully it's just a one-off. But it was just how quickly they just and you just seen it in the players as well. Like obviously myself and Gav were there. You just seen the players just literally they did a team huddle after the second goal, but then that got no better. But you just saw good honest football, good footballers. I had even Granit Xhaka, who's been there and done it, looked bewildered at what was going on, which was strange. Like I say, we didn't help ourselves. Obviously, I mean I think the second goal just killed us, didn't it? It was a terrible mistake at the back, and they've gone and scored, and that just killed us off, I think. But like I say, we can't afford to do that in any more games this season. And I think the team gives us a really good opportunity to go out there, try and grab an early goal or whatever, take some of the sting out of the game. I think for both teams, it's probably a little bit of a free hit, obviously, with what we've mentioned about Wolves just down there. I think with us as well, I don't think anyone's expecting us to get into Europe. So for us, it's just go there, try and get the 3 points, and we'll see what happens in the last 3 games. That'll be it for me. I'll be over the moon with that. I just don't want the season ending what would be 6 defeats and us just being on the beach now. I really hope that isn't the case, Chris.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bomber, Xhaka has been saying the right things in public since the game. He said we need to focus on putting it right. But that was put to the manager in the press conference, and he said that many things have been said behind the scenes since the game, but they're going to remain private. He kept saying the energy has been good this week on the training ground. He said nobody's looking for excuses. And he was talking about that, I think, and the hint I got was that a lot of the conversations were about standards and culture, because he kept saying that without actually linking it to the conversations. But I got the impression that the two were linked. But he said they've had some honest conversations. In, the things that have been said have had the right tone since the game, haven't they, Bomber?
They have, yeah, and it's exactly what you'd expect. If it was given the level of performance, and given that I believe it's the biggest defeat of the stadium alive. So, that is a tag that no Sunderland manager or no Sunderland team wants.
And I think Andrew said it was one of the biggest home defeats since the 50s, I think.
Right. Well, there you go. So I mean, the players and the manager are going to be hurting from that. So if we weren't hearing words to that effect, then as a fan base, we'd have our torches and pitchforks out at the stadium, demanding a few answers. So they're saying the right things, but as always with these things, Chris, the proof in the pudding will be on the pitch. It's the reaction on the pitch that we want, and there's no better team theoretically to go to and put it right than a team that's sat at the bottom of the league that's already relegated. It would have been good, I think, to probably have had to play them at home and have the fans kind of behind them. But yeah, those you can just imagine what those honest and difficult and hard conversations were. I'd imagine the leadership group of the team is probably coming from the players. It's probably come from the Granit Xhakas and the Luka Nines and the likes of the team that have just come into training on the Monday morning or the Sunday because we played on the Friday and just said, look, lads, that was absolutely shite. What do you want to be? How do you want to be remembered as a Sunderland player? Do you want to be part of a team that got us into Europe for the first time and got, or second time ever in our history or whatever it might be? Do you want to go down in history as one of the best promoted teams ever from the Premier League, or do you just want to knock it on the head, float around mid-table, and be like, oh well, we didn't get relegated, so that's good. We'll have another go next season. So I think it's those sorts of conversations, and I don't think it would have necessarily needed Regis to put fireworks at backsides. I think they would have done that for themselves. And the only thing I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall for is just to kind of understand who those conversations were directed at, if they were directed at individuals, or whether they didn't go quite as far as to say, you weren't good enough, you weren't good enough, you weren't good enough. And they kind of just tried to bring that team spirit and that bonding back together and all take responsibility, but all kind of challenged to have a look at themselves. Because it is a sliding doors moment for our season. We could go on and a win today, and we can go on and still go on and achieve something absolutely fantastic and quite unprecedented. Or we can slip into mid-table obscurity, finish 14th, and the history books will look at it and forget the results that we had at Stamford Bridge and the likes. They'll just go, oh, Sunderland got promoted. They finished 14th in their first season. Well done, lads. And a quiet round of applause. So yeah, it would have been interesting to see, but I want to see a reaction. Words only stretch so far in football, don't they?
Yeah. And Gav, I hinted up at the top that you wrote something on the BBC website, as you do most weeks, and you said that wasn't acceptable. And I think everybody's basically said that, considering how long it's been since we were beaten like that at home. But as I said in the press conference, Register Bris knocked away pretty much all the excuses, because I think even some of the people in the press were handing them to him, saying, was it the virus in the squad? Was it this? Was it that? And he was going, nope, there's no excuses. But the one thing he was asked about was that, the goals that have been conceded in the last two games. And, if you throw into there the form, we lost 4 in the first 20 and we've lost 8 in the last 14. And he was kind of asked a little bit about, especially the goals being conceded. And he says, we're working hard, but the league is evolving. And he asked the question out loud, the rhetorical question, have we dropped, or have opponents found solutions? But what do you put that down to in terms of the conceding all of those goals recently and that change in form when you look at it like that?
Oh, big question. I honestly don't know. I think maybe we've had a bit of change in the defence, but then again, that's happened all the way through the season where players have dropped out through injury or suspension or loss of form or whatever. Because honestly, that team we put out on last Friday was pretty much full strength, really. That's as close as we can get to full strength. So there's you can't even say like we didn't have our best players available. We did. It was just all you can say is it's possibly attitude. We've let something slip. After getting beyond 40 points, maybe beating Newcastle was a big goal. We achieved it. The Spurs game at home still had a bit of a big game feel about it, even though it's Spurs who've been struggling. And maybe just we've seen it a few times this season where we've played teams where you look at it and you go, even though it's a bit of a daft thing to say, we should beat them. Like, you look at Forest who've been down the bottom all season and you think we should beat them maybe. And it's not the case. And then you come away really disappointed because we haven't won. Maybe it was that. I don't know. I don't really want to make any excuses for it. I think if you just look at the defending for the goals, particularly on Friday, it was poor. We switched off, bad communication, people not being on their toes, ready to go, and you get punished at this level for making mistakes. And it was the same against Villa. It was just crap defending. And both games, all the defending for the goals we conceded was rubbish. And they've got to look within. They've got to look within at that and work out why that has been. And you can guarantee there'll have been a reaction this week in training. I think Granit Xhaka will have made sure that the players are on it this week. But training's one thing. You've got to be on it in games, and there's an expectation that we're going to go there and win. There has to be, despite everything we've said about Wolves being dangerous and having some decent players and picking up some good results recently. 11v11, we should beat them. So we've got to apply ourselves fully to ensure we do that. And all the pressure is back on the players. They've got to deliver. We've sold out yet another away end. the fans have been with them all season. Sometimes I think it's a little bit easier playing away from home for our players. So, I'm expecting them to give us a performance, and there can be no excuses. If we get a bad result after this, then there is going to be a bit of, because the inquest will start. There's a handful of games left, very little left to play for. People will start looking and going, did we toss away the chance of qualifying for Europe because of those 3 results? And the inquest will probably start. So it puts a bit of pressure on them, doesn't it? But, let's hope they just do what they've done all season and they react well. We tend to react well to bad results. So let's just hope that, they do that again. And actually we then go into the next game thinking, actually, we get a couple of good results. We might still be in the conversation for a top 8 finish. And that's where we want to be, isn't it? Ideally.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the team, I'm going to throw the obvious follow-up to that, to Ant, because the obvious follow-up from what Gav's just said, how important is it, Ant, that the team does react and show that they're reacting, provide at the very least a good performance that we can hang our hat on and say, okay, we saw something there?
Oh, I think it's massive because, as Gav just said there, it probably will be for the first time this season where questions will probably rightly be asked as well. And if we go there and just limp to a 1-0 or 2-0 defeat or whatever it is, lie over and get our bellies tickled and stuff, I think the fans are now will be justified in asking questions, because we are on I say the verge because it's still going to be a difficult end of the season, but we have a chance to do something very, very special. For in a lot of fans' lifetimes, we've never been in Europe. It's a new thing, and whether we're ready for it or not is a question for another day. But it's there to be had. That the league's so close this season. I'm not sure that would happen next year. We don't know what's going to happen. So for me, like I say, even if we don't get into Europe, but we finish top 10 and we finish above them up the road, would be absolutely outstanding. It'd be a wonderful season. You look at that, look at that, Sunderland's finished 9th. Look at all the players who are wanting to come again. Look at that. You know what I mean? I think that'd be an amazing season, as what Bama said before. Or are we going to finish? Are we just going to lumber to whatever happens at the end of the season and finish 13th and 14th? And you're going, oh, Sunderland did all right, but fell away. And I think this team's better than that. I really do. I think this team's better than just stumbling to whatever it is at the end of the season, something to another, like, say, 4 defeats or whatever, and letting it peter out. I really do. I think they're better than that. So I think it does need a response. And I do think we'll get it. I do think we'll get that today. But we've got to be on it from the first minute, Chris. We did, like I say, as much as last week was poor, we did actually start okay up until probably when Chris Rigg missed that chance. So we're capable of doing it. We need to do that today, for hopefully for the first half, get a goal or even get a couple of goals, and then I think the confidence will come back on them. But yeah, for me, it's just, like I said, I do think even though it's a free hit, it's still a huge game for us just to get that momentum back. And let people know that we're not going to just lie down and get our bellies tickled, and that we are a good side. Because, like I say, I think they deserve it. I really think they do.
Yeah. Well, Bomber, actually, just very quickly, I want to get your 2 pence on this because I think this is the main point about the game today. In terms of the importance of us getting a reaction. I mean, let's say it goes the other way. I mean, is that even worth thinking about? Because does that then impact, of course, the last 3 games, the atmosphere at the last 3 games? Maybe the summer, who we can attract next season, or is that going overboard?
No, I don't think it's going overboard at all. But when you say go the other way, I assume you mean a poor performance and a poor result.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's an overreaction because, like I said, that will determine whether we finish 7th, 8th, 9th, or 13th, 14th, 15th. And the players that we will be looking to attract over the summer, they're not necessarily following us all season. They won't have seen us go to Stamford Bridge and win, or go and put in a performance at Anfield, and they're just looking and going, okay, Sunderland are interested, and the agent will go, oh, they started all right, but they finished 14th in the Premier League last season. I think you're better than that. I think we could probably get a top 6, top 7, top 8 Premier League club. And there's only so many father figures that Regis can be a father figure to. there's only so many Enzos and Xhakas, etc., that you can sell a project to. At some point, it's going to be, well, how far up the table are you? Are you going to be able to offer me European football? So no, I don't think it's overstated at all, because we don't get a result against Wolves. We were lucky last week in that results for the teams above us by and large went our way. So we're still right in the thick of it. Let's not forget that. But let's say Wolves turn us over today, and Everton get a result, and Bournemouth get a result, Brighton get a result, etc. It then adjusts our mentality both on and off the pitch, and off the pitch I mean by fans, and it just opens the door to that season petering out and a 13th place finish or a 14th place finish, and like you quite rightly pointed out, it does affect our aspirations for next season, because the top players in the continent want to be playing in the top competitions in the continent. And it doesn't necessarily, I'm not saying that we're going to attract Champions League level players, but there are certainly players in and around mainland Europe who will want to be playing at least conference football, or Europa Conference, football next season, not the old the Vauxhall Conference.
In old money.
Yeah. So it absolutely is as important as any other game this season, other than the 2 games against the Mags. Even though there's only 4 games left and we're safe, the season's not over, and we just need to remember that, because it absolutely will have a knock on. Not least the fact that, the difference between finishing 7th and 14th is probably about 16, 17, 18 million pounds in Premier League revenue. And, that's halfway towards another Diarra, most of the way towards a Granit Xhaka. So, yeah. So I don't think you're wrong, Chris, and I don't think it's overstating it at all.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the team that Regis Bris might put out, because the team news at the press conference was that Jocelyn should be available. Traore and Angulo at the time of the press conference were touch and go for this week. Might possibly be next week when they'll be back. The talk was around these returning players potentially providing spark, Gav, but Regis Bris played it down and saying, well, they're not going to hit the ground running because they need a couple of weeks to get back into it. So do you see him throwing anyone straight in, the likes of Jocelyn, or do you see him making any changes? Because you said earlier you felt we were pretty much full strength.
I think if there's going to be any changes, it'll be possibly something which I think is talked about on the which was talked about on the Q&A show, which was maybe bringing Diarra out, moving Lafise centrally and putting Talby out wide. I think that's probably the only big change I can think of. Obviously, Ronaldo coming back in, maybe. In fact, I would probably do that, but I can't see him chucking Jocelyn in, not when he's been out for as long as he has. I think he's going to need probably nursing to the end of the season, maybe give him a few minutes off the bench, which, to be honest, I think that's all we were expecting from him anyways when he signed. Like, give him the odd appearance here and there, and then, let him have a pre-season with us and see how he goes. We were all pretty shocked when he got put straight into the starting 11 that day, and then he ended up going off injured. But no, I would probably say the changes will be minimal, even after such a heavy defeat. I know it's not really his style to make mass changes, and anyways, there's not a great deal of change you could realistically make, I don't think. I'm expecting, Ronaldo to come back in, probably for Hume. Diarra coming out of the side for Enzo Lafay, and then Talby on the left. That would be my only changes. Keep Rig on the right. I think Rig was really hard done to, being taken off at half time. He was probably one of the only players where I came away thinking he hasn't done too bad, actually. And then he's the one hauled off. So it would be nice for Rig to have a bit of faith shown in him and give him his place back. But yeah, otherwise I can't see many changes at all. And what's interesting as well, by the way, we've stopped talking about Mayenda as I haven't heard us talk about Eliza Mayenda as somebody who should start a game. So there's a curveball. If he does make one, maybe Mayenda starting in place of Rig. But yeah, minimal changes.
Well, I saw Ant nodding his head throughout, Gav, saying what changes might be made. I mean, do you agree with that, Ronaldo coming back in? And talking about that Rig substitution that Gav mentioned, and does that give us any clues? Because he maybe had the options to bring Diarra out or Rig out, and he chose Rig. So if he does make any changes, Do you think Rig keeps his place?
Personally, I would, especially if obviously I'm in agreement. I'd move Enzo into the 10, and so then you've got to bring a winger in, so you can't just move DR out there. So I would personally, just because I think the last couple of games DR has been poor. Thought last week he was especially poor. I really did. I thought he was, not going to dig him out, but yeah. So I would like to see Talby back. I think Talby's been quite underused lately. He got that goal against the Mags. Thought he played really, really well, and then hasn't been seen since, barely, has he? So it was a bit strange. The only other thing, what I was thinking of, he might bring Wilson back in, because he's done all right the last couple of games, and he did all right against Forest when he came on. Obviously got that goal against Villa, but is that at the expense of Bobby, which I don't think so, or will he go different and go 2 up top, which he may do the shape what he did last week and do 3-5-2. I don't see it, but I think it's a maybe, because I think, like I say, I think Wilson's done really well the last couple of games, and maybe he's going to reward that. But no, I think the two I would make is what Gav did, probably definitely Ronaldo win, and I would imagine Hume goes because Mugiel is better at right back, and then I want to see Talby back, because I think Talby, like I say, I think he's going to be a superstar in a few years' time. I really do, and I'd like to see him have a go at the Wolves defence.
No, well, Bomber, and Gav said 2 changes. There's obviously a lot of talk out there. People wanting them to ring the changes after a 5-0 defeat. People wanting the whole team pulled out and changed, and the system changed, and everything changed before the next game. But this debate about Lefebvre seems to be the biggest one. Bringing him centrally, putting the likes of Talby out wide. I made a point, I think, on one podcast, I can't remember which one this week, but my point was that with Enzo Lefebvre, my issue was, and if you look at the Villa game especially, it's more giving him the ball regardless of where he is. And I think that's been more to fault than where Lefebvre is being played on the pitch, because I think he's given license to wander. If he wants to come centrally, I think the Bris likes that. But I just don't think we've been getting him the ball, and I don't think we've been attacking well enough to get him the ball in the feet in positions where he can do the damage. But do you think that warrants a change to bring him into the middle?
Not necessarily, mate. Not necessarily. I think if you do change it, it's to bring Talby in. But I would agree with you. I don't think it matters really where Enzo plays on the pitch, because he can kind of do what he wants, like you say. I would agree with you. It's that we need to get him on the ball more. It obviously relies on him having a good game as well. Because when he's not at his best, he can be a little bit wasteful in the final third. But yeah, some of the best stuff that we play is through Enzo Lefebvre, and it doesn't really seem to matter whether it's through the middle, whether it's out wide. The only thing that I would say is that out wide, I think what Enzo does defensively to help out his left back is massively underrated. The work rate that he puts in getting back and winning the ball back, like how many times have we seen him in that defensive quarter of the pitch, on that left hand side, like putting slide tackles and win the ball back and actually start something from a little bit deeper, which I don't think Talby offers you necessarily. And obviously you lose if you put Enzo back into the middle, specifically to play through the middle. But I agree. I think I agree with Gav and Ant. I don't think there's going to be that many changes. I don't think you play out the narrative that you have this season. Play out the narrative that you have this week in saying that you've had harsh conversations and honest conversations, and you want to put things right, and not give the players who got things so wrong the opportunity to put it right in the first place. Yeah. So I'd agree. I think Ronaldo comes back in because he's too good a fullback to leave out for 2 games on the bounce. And possibly Talby, although I don't even necessarily think that it would be, because for that very reason, like I said, you don't pour out that narrative and then make 6 changes. You pour that narrative out because you want the players who got you in that shit to get you out of it the following week. So I possibly only see one, which would be Ronaldo.
Okay, interesting. It'd be interesting to see the team lineup today, but it's prediction time. We haven't won at Molineux in the last 7 attempts, and we have to go back to 1998 when Kevin Ball scored the winner, and we're going to go with you first, Gav. Glass half full, Gav, to go with the first prediction.
I'm really struggling with this one.
No, if Gav's struggling, bloody hell, I've got no chance.
1-0 to Sunderland.
Oh,
We're either going to put things right and get a clean sheet and just win the game, or it's going to be horrible, and I don't want to think about horrible. So I'm going with 1-0 Sunderland, but I'm not massively confident, if I'm really honest. Probably sensing that from your tone today. But yeah, 1-0.
Are you going to give us a scorer?
You know what? I fancy, after having a bit of a shotter recently, Diarra to come off the bench and get the winner.
Nice. I'll
Yeah.
take that. Ant, any advance on 1-0?
I think both teams will score, so I'll go 2-1 us. If you want goal scorers, Lafay and Ballard.
Ooh. Well, considering we've been so good off set pieces recently.
Well, the time machine is always a good time. He might just score a thunder bastard from somebody scored last week, so it got disallowed, but it still scored.
That's true. But Bomber, are you going to go for a full house?
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1. 2-1 was my immediate thought. I'm looking at the results. It was only the Spurs game last week that was the first home game that Wolves haven't at least scored in since way back at the start of the year. So they're getting goals at home. We've shipped 9 in the last 2 games. There's nothing to suggest that we're going to keep a clean sheet here. So I'm going to go 2-1 also. I'm going to go Brobby and then a late Isidore winner. As seems to be custom at the moment.
Isidore winner, nice. Well,
yeah.
Well, I'm going to go 1-0 as well, same as Gav, because I know you said they're all right at home in terms of scoring goals, but they haven't scored in their last 3 games. So I think it's a run that they might struggle to get out of. And from what Dave said from Talking Wolves on the preview podcast, he was saying that this Spurs game, they were pretty poor going forward, and Spurs picked them off, which I think might be something we can do. And I'll go for Lafay. A Lafay penalty. Why not? He's coming in from the left. Everyone wants him to. Comes into the middle, gets a penalty and scores it. But there you go. All 4 of us say a Sunderland win. So I'd go out and check the odds on a Wolves victory.
I wouldn't. Not after last week.
I was going to say Johnny with his 3-0 prediction.
So, as you can see, we've got a good track record. Anyway, I think that's a good place to leave things. Just leaves me to say thank you very much to Bomber, to Ant, and to Gav. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time. As always, it's been a pleasure. So thank you, and thanks again, everyone, for listening. Don't forget, we'll have immediate reaction after the final whistle with a pod that should drop soon after, probably with Gav and Bomber, I think, isn't it, gents?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
I'll be on. Yeah.
If he turns up on time,
Well, I'll know straight after the full-time whistle. So that's
He
really
said
easy to
kick
keep
off.
track of.
Turn up straight after
I'll be on
kick-off.
there at half-time waiting for you, mate. Don't worry.
Well, hopefully they get together at some point, and hopefully there'll be much rejoicing with the lads then. So don't miss that. And we'll have all the reaction on the Local Report website, so look out for that as well. But from us, it's bye for now.